This is a production of West Virginia Public Broadcasting.
Support for the Legislature Today is provided by West Virginia University, offering education, healthcare, and the opportunity to achieve career success since 1867. Information at wvu.edu.
Sonesta Suites in Charleston, an extended stay hotel located near the airport, downtown, and the state capitol. More at sonesta.com.
Solar Holler, supporting Appalachian communities and building on West Virginia's history of powering the nation by bringing solar energy and battery backup to homeowners, nonprofits, and businesses throughout the region. More at solarholler.com.
Welcome to the Legislature Today. I'm Brianna Heaney. Tomorrow is crossover day, and both chambers are pushing to move their own bills across the finish line and get them to the opposite side of the Capitol. The Senate passed today a bill that would outlaw the use, sale, and distribution of abortifacients in the state. Here's my story.
Abortifacients are medications used to induce an abortion. They can be used to treat a miscarriage or end an unwanted pregnancy. Abortion is already illegal in the state, with just a few exceptions for medical emergencies. The ban also applies to abortions performed with abortifacients. Mifepristone is a widely used abortifacient that can be used to terminate a pregnancy from home. The drug is also used to manage miscarriages and treat illnesses like endometriosis or Cushing's syndrome. Opponents of the bill worry it could make it harder for physicians to get life-saving medications to patients. Kelly Lemons is a certified nurse midwife. She spoke against the bill at the Senate Judiciary Committee last Thursday.
Something that a lot of people may not be aware of is when we think about using misoprostol for hemorrhage management, that is a safe, low-cost, very effective method. And that is probably your most used method in your lower acuity hospital settings. So when we're thinking about rural places, like if someone from where I'm from starts to hemorrhage, maybe the closest place they could go to is going to be Mini Hamilton in Calhoun County. They're not going to have hemorrhage medications besides probably misoprostol, or they might be able to quickly get misoprostol from another pharmacy. The lack of clarity in this bill with couriers and distribution is going to put a barrier in getting those medications to those lower acuity hospitals.
The bill was amended by Senator Ryan Weld, a Republican from Brooke County, to include a provision that would allow for the distribution of the medication for prescriptions permitted under the current law. Senator Patricia Rucker, a Republican from Jefferson County, said the bill would enforce the state's abortion ban as written.
This legislation does not further expand abortion restrictions. It does not create new law regarding abortion. It is enforcement of the existing law that West Virginia legislators have supported and voted for in the past. So just like we have lots and lots of laws in the books, we expect those laws to be followed. What this legislation does is give a pathway for enforcement.
The bill would fine individuals within and outside the state who prescribe and provide abortifacients to people in West Virginia. The bill was amended yesterday to allow for civil suits against offenders. Anyone who has been illegally prescribed or given the drugs in the state could sue their provider under the amended bill. Rucker, who was responsible for one of those amendments, said that this gives the bill a bit more bite. She called it necessary because some states, like New York, have shield laws protecting state residents from out-of-state charges for prescribing and distributing abortifacients.
Civilly, the need for evidence of the bad actor's intent is a little less than a criminal, and so slightly easier to prove, and this allows just the ordinary victim to be able to pursue it in court.
Senator Eric Tarr, a Republican from Putnam County, spoke against the provision allowing for civil suits. He said he is concerned about expanding the possibilities for lawsuits, saying it's bad for business.
And I've been the biggest champion for this bill. I've been all over it. because we can still come back and do this without making this mistake. Because if you want young families having babies over here in West Virginia, we need jobs, Mr. President.
Tarr opposes abortion, but he caught some heat from Senator Mike Azinger, a Republican from Wood County, who also opposes the practice.
Okay, so we're looking for evidence of your being pro-life here. That's what I'm looking for. This seems to me like a pretty easy one. But I just would hope that you would prove your pro-life bona fides here and vote yes on this.
My pro-life bona fides, Senator, are never in question. That's something I'll answer to for God.
That's the only point
and I think the ones who allowed the exceptions will as well.
Senator Joey Garcia, a Democrat from Marion County, stood up to speak against the bill as well.
Well, I'll tell you, my bona fides, I think this is another chipping away at medical, at people just getting health care in the state of West Virginia. And every year we have an abortion bill, it seems like, or more than one, and we're just chipping away more. And when I hear about job losses, well, I could see that because people want to move out of the state when you have a state that doesn't appreciate health care that women should be able to get and that they do get in other states.
Ultimately, the bill had 5 no votes, with 1 Democrat and 4 Republicans voting against the bill. It now heads to the House for further review.
The West Virginia House of Delegates passed a bill today that would allow data centers to establish microgrids, self-contained sites that generate their own power. Governor Patrick Morrisey asked lawmakers to consider the policy last month. Proponents of House Bill 2014, like Morrisey, hope giving developers more control over their energy resources could attract more data centers and new jobs to the state. That includes Delegate Clay Riley, a Republican from Harrison County.
You know, we're looking for an opportunity to compete in West Virginia through an ever-changing landscape of technological innovation.
Data centers use large amounts of energy, and advocates say microgrids ensure a site can meet its energy demands without straining the grid residents, schools, and businesses depend on. But Delegate Marty Gearhart, a Republican from Mercer County, worries the bill would mean data centers wouldn't have to help shoulder energy cost, which could leave electricity rates just as high for residents.
Should we enact this legislation and attract these data centers, we are not going to attract ratepayers that are able to spread the fixed costs. Now, I don't know whether this will, if we were to have data centers come here without these microgrids, whether it would lower your power bills, but it doesn't appear like with the microgrid that there's any opportunity for that. And I think the fact that we have had a declining population and the fact that we are taking potential ratepayers and eliminating them from the power system means it certainly is a possibility. It certainly is a possibility. As such, I urge a red vote on this particular bill.
Despite the delegates' concerns, a majority of members of the House gave the bill its stamp of approval. House Bill 2014 passed by a vote of 88 to 12 and now heads to the Senate for further review. The Senate Education Committee took up 2 bills that aim to improve school security, a legislative focus for years. One bill would standardize the floor plans schools are already required to provide to first responders. House Bill 2164 would allow for public and private schools in West Virginia to employ security personnel and standardize their training. Senator Scott Allen Fuller, a Republican from Wayne County, applauded the bill as necessary, not only for school security, but for strained police departments.
I see this as a very critical need for our schools because the fact is that there are police officers that do volunteer for this or work as a school resource officer, but all the departments across the state are so shorthanded now that it really becomes a burden on the departments. I think this is a great idea. I think it's a great bill.
Both school security bills were advanced to the full Senate. The committee also took up House Bill 2635, which would ensure that classroom sizes are equal without losing a teacher's aide. The bill is intended to ensure aids can be the best utilized and one-on-one time with teachers and students can be maximized. But senators were quick to question what constituted equal and whether teachers' aid requirements create an unfunded hiring mandate. Sonia White, Deputy State Superintendent, told lawmakers that at least one county estimated having to hire 24 additional aides if the bill passed. Senator Eric Tarr, a Republican from Putnam County, said he could not understand how the bill did not carry a fiscal note.
So if we mandate it and it's not included with the school aid formula, I would assume that, and maybe I want to ask you if I'm correct to assume, that a school board, since this is mandated, this becomes something they're going to have to cut something else that maybe is not mandated in order to fund it.
The bill was laid over for a later meeting. The microgrids bill mentioned earlier is one of Governor Patrick Morrisey's legislative priorities. It is also of interest to Chris Hamilton, the president of the West Virginia Coal Association. Curtis Tate spoke with Hamilton about issues the coal industry is facing at home and abroad.
Welcome, Chris Hamilton. It's great to have you on.
Appreciate the opportunity.
I believe you were just in the House chamber watching a debate on House Bill 2014, which is the microgrid bill. Can you tell me why the West Virginia Coal Association is interested in that piece of legislation?
Well, again, appreciate the opportunity to be on and talk about these issues here today. It's important to our business and industry. This is one of the governor's key pieces of legislation, and it does provide for additional microgrids and data centers to locate here in West Virginia. And we generally embrace that, but do have concerns over the impact it will ultimately have on our 9 in-state coal-fired electric plants, and obviously the coal supplies that fuel those plants. Our position's been, as long as we do everything humanly possible to keep these coal plants running, to keep our miners working, we will look at other forms of energy with an open mind.
So, the coal fleet that you mentioned, does it currently support any data centers or anything of that kind? What are we talking about here in terms of what they're looking at to power these facilities?
Great question. And as sort of a starting point, there are some small-scale data centers and bit mining operations that are currently being provided their electricity from in-state coal-fired electric utilities.
In West Virginia?
In West Virginia. There are several located, the bit mining operations, which also fall under the definition of data centers, do exist on, I think, at 3 mining operations at the current time in northern West Virginia. Again, they are small users. Collectively, I think they account for about 100 megawatts of electricity. There are data centers 2-3 times that size and even greater size operating in the state of Virginia. We have experienced, as a state, as a society, actually, a major growth in electrical demand, a real surge in power demand brought about by the data centers that are being developed and located in adjacent states. So this bill seeks to, and Governor Morrisey seeks to, trying to provide the climate, the power source to bring in additional facilities. We believe we should be doing everything that we can to make sure that those new data centers coming into the state of West Virginia plug into our existing coal plants that we have across the state. That does a couple things. It keeps those coal plants, the additional load, it keeps those coal plants running more efficiently. And they do have capability, both of our major electricities, both of our major state utilities, both have the ability to generate greater volumes of electricity. And when that happens, The plant runs more efficiently. It requires more coal to consume, keeps miners working, keeps these communities where these plants are located healthy. And it also tends to lower electric rates. Greater load typically results in the plant running more efficiently and has the ability to offer lower electric rates for end users or consumers.
Let me ask you this, though. You mentioned Appalachian Power and Mon Power. First of all, are they interested in ramping up their coal-fired generation for this purpose? And secondly, the companies that operate the data centers, are they interested in receiving coal-generated power?
Well, most of it, and we've talked to some data center companies, and we've also talked to both utilities who indicate that they are getting requests after request wanting to know if they can provide the power necessary to operate these data centers. And interestingly, most data centers today don't care what fuels the power they receive. They just want the power. They want commitments for long-term power, and they want that power to be both affordable and reliable. So, I think we're moving beyond this situation where we're seeing a transition away from coal, more and more companies wanting renewables and other forms of electricity. I think that matters less today to these data center companies and operations that require huge volumes of electricity. And they want that on demand, and they want it again to be reliable and affordable.
Well, last week I had a chance to speak to Jim Cruz of the West Virginia Gas and Oil Association, and of course they're making a big push for their fuel source for data centers and other applications. He actually said something that I found interesting. He said that for the most part, data center power comes from a combination of renewables and gas. But you expect that could change?
Well, what we have here today is perhaps the most efficient, desired electric ecosystem that you'll find anywhere in the country. I mean, there's huge power demand out there. Again, it's sudden and unexpected.
From just the data centers?
From just the data centers, the charging of electric batteries for EV automobiles across the country. We don't have a huge, output of that here in West Virginia. But when you move towards the western states, particularly in California, Arizona, Nevada, and those places that are more conducive for electric vehicle operation, the drain on the household energy systems and regional energy systems, it's a combination of things. More and more iPhones, more and more computerization. The AI consumes much more. The artificial intelligence systems is out there today in some stage of infancy, but it's consuming much more household and residential and power than what's available in some reason. And here we are in West Virginia with this, coal-based electric system. We're one of only 2 states that actually export power outside of our state's boundaries within the PJM system. So we're providing power to the state of Virginia, the state of Ohio, the state of Kentucky, and into the PJM system, which is then distributing that power to states that have an undervoltage or an undersupply from within their state. So we're in a pretty good situation to utilize before we expand outward. From our perspective, we have an excellent situation here to fully utilize the capacity that's available on both the AEP system and the First Energy system. Before we start building out and developing natural gas plants and nuclear plants, hydrogen plants and power, and all the things you hear under this roof with respect to potential power sources to help energize and provide power to future ratepayers here in the state of West Virginia.
Well, let me ask you about something that you said recently, which is that over the past 15 years, or that West Virginia is producing half the coal it did about 15 years ago, with about half the people. But you said that with a change in administration in Washington and a new governor here in this state, that you could get back to that prior level. I'm just wondering, what's your punch list of things that would have to happen to make that a reality?
First of all, a realization from the powers to be that we can increase and expand our output in coal mining assets within the state of West Virginia, i.e. the nation's energy hub right here.
Can you find the workers to do it?
Oh, we think we can. We think we can.
And the rail cars and the train crews and.
Again, there's tremendous assets here within the state. You know, we have a very sophisticated coal transportation system. You mentioned that we have half the workers today and half the output, and you were referencing comments that I have previously made. You know, we do have about half the miners today of what we had 15 years ago. And instead of producing 165 million tons of coal on average annually, we're producing about 85 million tons of coal. So those numbers have been reduced in about half, but it still represents a substantial portion of our state's industrial job base. And even at our reduced profile, we still account for a $15 billion industry here within the state. And we ship it all over the world. You know, we're a major exporting state, and we can and ramp up our productivity, and we can, but we have to realize that, follow suit with the actions that President Trump has taken so far, and move beyond this thought, if you will, that we have to transition away from coal and all the pressures and forces that have been levied by President Biden.
We only have about a minute left, but I want to touch on another topic, which is you mentioned export coal, which is about half the state's production, isn't it?
It is.
Well, the Trump administration has proposed to impose a fee of up to $1.5 million per ships that are built in China, Chinese shipping companies, when they come to U.S. ports. That could have a very significant impact on export.
It could. And one point of clarification, because that is being represented as part of President Trump's trade initiative is being viewed as synonymously with tariffs. But the provision and the proposed rule that we're most concerned about today comes from the previous Biden administration, and it seeks to impose between a $10 and $20 a ton tariff on West Virginia coal. Being the major exporter state we are of both metallurgical coal and steam coal, it will really cut into our operations and revenues generated from coal.
Well, Chris, I'm afraid we're out of time, but thank you so much for being here.
Oh, I appreciate the opportunity to come on. We'll do this again. Thank you.
That was Chris Hamilton of the West Virginia Coal Association, speaking with Curtis Tate at the Capitol. That's it for tonight. Thank you for joining us. Catch the legislature today, Monday through Friday at 6 p.m. And remember, West Virginia Public Broadcasting covers the session daily in our radio news program, West Virginia Morning, and on our news site at wvpublic.org. We also broadcast the daily floor sessions of both the House and the Senate on the West Virginia channel. I'm Brianna Heaney. Good evening, and see you here again tomorrow.
Support for the Legislature Today is provided by West Virginia University, offering education, healthcare, and the opportunity to achieve career success since 1867. Information at wvu.edu.
Sonesta Suites in Charleston, an extended stay hotel located near the airport, downtown, and the state capitol. More at sonesta.com.
Solar Holler, supporting Appalachian communities and building on West Virginia's history of powering the nation by bringing solar energy and battery backup to homeowners, nonprofits, and businesses throughout the region. More at solarholler.com.